For 2 years, they sold you a lie. Every Survivor Series stare-down, every backstage glance. Every time Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes breathed the same air, you were being conditioned to believe that WrestleMania 42 would be their final war. The trilogy, the end of the story. The moment Cody finally conquered the mountain for good. That match is dead, buried, scrapped. And the person who killed it doesn't work in Stamford, Connecticut. They work in Los Gatos, California. Their name is not Triple H or Nick Khan. It's an algorithm, a cold, unfeeling piece of code that tracks exactly when you reach for your phone during a wrestling show. The Vegas pivot is what insiders are calling the single most controversial creative decision of the Netflix era. Roman Reigns versus CM Punk, not Cody versus Roman. And the evidence is now public that this wasn't a creative choice. It was a corporate mandate backed by millions of data points showing that you, the viewer, are more likely to rewind a Roman Reigns promo than you are to watch Cody Rhodes finish his story. This is the story of how Netflix became the invisible booker of WWE. How they analyzed your viewing habits, your skip patterns, your rewatch data, and decided that the story you thought you wanted wasn't profitable enough. And how Cody Rhodes, the man who spent 3 years climbing the mountain, just got pushed off the cliff by a spreadsheet. Let's start with the confirmation. On February 5th, 2026, the Solemn Monster Sound Off podcast dropped an episode titled The Vegas Lie. In it, he detailed what multiple backstage sources had been whispering for weeks. The planned Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes trilogy for WrestleMania 42 was officially dead. Not postponed, not delayed, dead. Scrapped. Removed from the creative whiteboard entirely. Solemn Monster didn't mince words. He called it a narrative betrayal. He pointed to the months of Build the Survivor Series stare-downs, the War Games tensions, the constant reminders that Cody had never truly beaten Roman clean as intentional misdirection. The fans were being led down a path that was never going to reach its destination. The question is, why build something for 2 years and then abandon it? The answer reveals the new reality of WWE in the streaming era. The people paying the bills no longer care about long-term storytelling if the short-term data tells a different story. According to multiple sources, the original plan was indeed Cody versus Roman 3. It was penciled in. Creative had mapped out the promos. Merchandise designs were being drafted. But everything changed in January 2026 after the Netflix anniversary show. January 5th, 2026. The Netflix anniversary episode of Monday Night Raw. Behind the scenes, this wasn't just a television show. It was the first major product review meeting between WWE, creative, and Netflix executives. And the Netflix team came armed with something WWE had never truly faced before. Real-time, granular, algorithm-driven viewership data. For decades, WWE measured success by Nielsen ratings' broad, imprecise numbers that told you how many households had the TV on. Netflix measures something entirely different. They measure engagement. They measure completion rates. They measure when you pause, when you rewind, when you reach for your phone, when you click away entirely. This data, referred to internally as Tudum metrics, after Netflix's signature sound, painted a picture that horrified the executives in Los Gatos. While Cody Rhodes was beloved by the core wrestling audience, the choir, as they called him, his segments, showed a troubling pattern. Viewers, particularly new viewers discovering WWE through Netflix, were not staying engaged during his longer promo segments. The data was ruthless. During Cody's story, promos the heartfelt, emotional speeches about his father, his journey, his legacy. The completion rate dropped by 12% compared to baseline. New viewers were clicking away. They were treating his segments like a slow part of a movie they could fast forward through. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns' Acknowledge Me segments told a different story. 19% higher rewatch value. Users weren't just watching Roman live. They were rewinding to catch his facial expressions, the subtle shifts in his eyes, the way he commanded silence. His segments functioned like prestige television, like Succession, like Breaking Bad. They rewarded close attention. They made you feel smart for watching. Netflix's conclusion was brutal but simple. Cody Rhodes, speaks to wrestling fans. Roman Reigns speaks to television fans. And in the streaming era, television fans are a much larger, more valuable demographic. But Roman alone wasn't enough. They needed an opponent who could match his prestige drama energy while bringing an entirely different audience to the table. They needed Punk's fan base. It wasn't just wrestling fans. It was a specific demographic, Gen X and millennials, who had drifted away from WWE, but remained intensely loyal to the Punk brand. These were people who followed him on social media, who bought his comic books, who were lapsed viewers in the truest sense, people who had stopped watching wrestling but would absolutely watch if Punk was involved. This is what Netflix calls a cross-demographic collision. Watch Slow Horses and The Crown. CM Punk brings the counterculture audience, the people who watch BoJack Horseman and feel personally attacked by it. Together, they represent a Venn diagram of viewer demographics that covers who's better. It's about which audience segment shows up. And the data showed that Punk versus Reigns had significantly higher click-through potential than Reigns versus Rhodes. It was a business decision. The Royal Rumble in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The stage was set for the ultimate swerve. Roman Reigns entered at number 26. The crowd erupted. For 34 minutes, he dominated, eliminating 5 men, including Jey Uso and Jacob Fatu, looking every bit the original tribal chief he claims to be. And when it came down to the final 4, Roman, Gunther, Randy Orton, and Logan Paul, the tension was unbearable. Then it happened. Gunther eliminated Randy Orton, Roman threw Logan Paul over the top rope, and the 2 men stood alone in the ring, the last 2 competitors, staring at each other with the WrestleMania sign hanging above them. The finish was hard-hitting. Gunther applied the sleeper. Roman blocked. Roman went for the spear. Gunther countered into a powerbomb attempt. And then, in a moment that sent the internet into a frenzy, Roman escaped the hold, delivered a bone-shattering spear, and dumped Gunther over the top rope. Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble. Roman, the winner of the match, grabbed a microphone and pointed directly at the undisputed WWE Championship held by Drew McIntyre, who had eliminated Cody Rhodes earlier in the night. "Drew," he said, his voice dripping with contempt, "you think you're the king now? You're just a placeholder. At WrestleMania, I'm coming for that title, and I'm gonna make the whole world acknowledge me." Cody Rhodes, sitting in the back after being screwed by McIntyre's interference, never got the win. The dream of the three-peat was dead. The story was in jeopardy. And the man who spent years fighting for his kingdom was left standing in the shadows, watching the tribal chief take the final step toward Las Vegas. Now we arrive at the most painful part of this story. The data that killed Cody's dream wasn't just about him. It was about the entire way wrestling storytelling is changing in the streaming era. Analysts have begun referring to the Cody contraction, a term coined to describe the 12% viewership dip during his long-form promo segments. But the real story is more nuanced. Those dips didn't happen during his in-ring work. They happened during the emotional beats, the pauses, the heartfelt monologues about legacy and family. To a traditional wrestling fan, these moments are essential. They build depth. They create connection. But to a streaming viewer scrolling through Netflix, they feel like dead air. Like a scene in a show that's moving too slowly, the skip intro button mentality applies to promos now. If it's not immediately gripping, the viewer's attention wanders. Roman Reigns promos, by contrast, are built differently. They're shorter, more intense, more visual. He uses silence as a weapon. He lets the camera hold on his face while the crowd chants. These moments aren't dead air to a streaming viewer. They're cinematic tension. They feel intentional. They feel like a high-budget drama. CM Punk sits somewhere in the middle, off the rails at any moment. Netflix's algorithm measured all of this, maximize engagement across all demographics. Cody versus Roman would have pleased the core audience, the choir, but it wouldn't have grown the audience. And in the streaming era, growth is the only metric that matters. This leaves Cody Rhodes in the most uncomfortable position of his career. He finished the story, he climbed the mountain, He stood at the top with the championship and the confetti and the tears. And then, in the cold light of the streaming era, he discovered that the story doesn't actually end. It just gets rebooted by an algorithm. Cody reportedly fell on his sword by agreeing to lose the WWE Championship to Drew McIntyre in the 3 Stages of Hell match. He understood the assignment. He knew that Roman versus Punk was the bigger draw, the better business decision. But understanding doesn't make it hurt less. The Vegas pivot represents a fundamental shift in how WWE operates. For decades, the Booker's instinct ruled. Vince McMahon decided what the audience wanted based on his gut. Triple H continued that tradition with a slightly more modern sensibility. But now, the Booker isn't a person, it's a machine. A machine that tracks every glance, every pause, every moment measured. And by the cold, unfeeling metrics of the streaming age, he came up just short. Not in the ring, not on the mic, but in the data. In the 12% who reached for their phones during his most heartfelt moments, the American Nightmare's future isn't bleak. He'll still main event. He'll still sell merchandise. But the dream of closing the story with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, the final, definitive chapter, is gone. Erased by a spreadsheet. Murdered by an algorithm. And replaced by a match that Netflix believes will make you click and watch and never look away. In the streaming era, the only thing that matters is what keeps you glued to the screen. And right now, that's not a story ever. Roman Reigns versus CM Punk. The tribal chief versus the best in the world. The data says you'll watch. The data is never wrong.
Sweat and fire, no regret. Each pulse electric in my veins, breaking limits through the rains. A primal force burning bright.